Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we are taking on a topic that comes up at almost every family dinner table, in every corporate boardroom, and all over social media: the generational divide. But today we're going to do something a little different. We are setting aside the stereotypes, the angry think pieces, and the finger pointing. Instead, we're strictly dissecting this topic using hard, impartial statistics. So if you're ready for a genuinely objective look at the data that's actually driving the differences between generations, you are in the exact right place. Let's get into it. Here's the core question we're setting out to answer with verifiable data. Is it actually harder to be young today? There is an intense cultural friction right now. Older generations often feel like younger people are too demanding or lack resilience, a phenomenon that sometimes gets called juvenoia. And meanwhile, younger generations feel like the deck is entirely stacked against them, both economically and socially. But feelings aren't facts. To truly understand the modern youth mindset versus older generations, we have to look at the numbers.
And to do that, we are drawing directly from the heavyweights, globally recognized institutions. We're going to be looking at the 2024 Deloitte Global Gen Z and Millennial Survey, behavioral health data from McKinsey, income growth data from the Federal Reserve, housing statistics from the National Association of Realtors, and global health metrics from the World Health Organization. We are keeping it strictly to the raw, objective data. No opinions, just facts.
So here is our roadmap for the day. First, the generational data divide. Second, economics and homeownership. Third, the mental health crisis. Fourth, the new workplace mindset. And finally, number 5, we'll be connecting the dots. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the generational data divide. Let's see who actually holds the power. Just look at the sheer dominance of older generations in the housing market today. According to the 2023 National Association of Realtors report, baby boomers make up a massive 39% of home buyers and an even larger 52% of home sellers. They are absolutely the dominant force here. Compare that to Gen Z, the youngest adult generation, who make up just 4% of buyers, and they're doing so on the lowest median household income, about $50,400. Even millennials, who had been the biggest share of buyers for years, they actually saw their share decline recently. So right out of the gate, the data shows us a marketplace that is heavily weighted toward older, more established generations. Moving right along to Section 2, economics and homeownership and those shifting milestones. Okay, I want you to wrap your head around this number, 5.08. Based on 2024 data from MBA Newslink, this is the current home price to income ratio in the United States. And while it has dropped slightly from its absolute peak back in 2022, it is still incredibly high. To put it simply, the median home right now costs more than 5 times the median household income. Since 1980, the median U.S. home price has just violently outpaced income growth, skyrocketing by 551%. In comparison, the median household income has only increased by 373% over that exact same period. The data shows us that if household income had actually kept pace with home prices since the 80s, the median income today would need to be over $115,000. But instead, it sits at around $81,000. That is a massive numerical gap. So the really crucial point here is how this actually impacts life milestones. Looking at Federal Reserve data, millennials actually do have a slightly higher median income in their late 30s relative to previous generations. But because the cost of housing, and let's not forget higher education, has risen so drastically, their actual milestone of homeownership is shrinking. In 2022, 61% of 35 to 44-year-olds owned a home. Back in 1989, when baby boomers were that exact same age, the ownership rate was 66%. The economic finish line has quite literally been moved further away. Which brings us to Section 3, the mental health crisis, and this is a truly systemic issue. To really frame the severity of this, we aren't just talking about self-reported unhappiness or people feeling a bit down. In late 2021, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy issued a rare public health advisory specifically addressing a youth mental health crisis. This is a medically recognized systemic issue that we are dealing with. Let's look at the raw statistics comparing current youth mental health trends to previous generations. A major McKinsey consumer behavioral health survey found a really stark generational contrast. Get this. Gen Z respondents were up to 2.3 times more likely to report having been diagnosed with a behavioral or mental health condition compared to both Gen X and baby boomers. This isn't just a slight uptick, guys. It is a massive multiplier. The youth mindset today is carrying a remarkably heavy burden.
That same McKinsey study revealed that 1 in 4 Gen Z respondents, that's a full 25%, report feeling emotionally distressed. That is almost double the levels of distress reported by millennials and Gen X. When older generations ask why younger people seem more anxious today, well, the verifiable medical data confirms that they objectively are.
And zooming out, this is undeniably a global phenomenon. World Health Organization data from 2019 shows that 13% of the entire global population is living with mental disorders. That affects nearly 1 billion people worldwide. Anxiety and depressive disorders absolutely dominate this landscape, particularly among adolescents and young adults.
All right, Section 4, the new workplace mindset, focusing on purpose and flexibility. So how does all this translate to jobs? According to Deloitte's massive 2024 global survey of nearly 23,000 respondents, purpose is no longer just a perk, it's a hard requirement. Roughly 9 in 10 Gen Zs and millennials, 86% and 89% respectively, say having a sense of purpose is important to their overall job satisfaction. And they are backing this up with action. Nearly all of them say they aren't afraid to turn down work that doesn't align with their values. What's crazy is this is all happening while the cost of living remains their #1 societal concern. They are incredibly stressed about money for sure, but they still absolutely refuse to compromise on purpose. And traditional corporate structures are really clashing with this new mindset. Take return to office or RTO mandates. Deloitte objectively reports these are yielding highly mixed results. While some folks do find better connection, a significant portion report that RTO is actively negatively impacting their mental well-being and just cranking up their stress. In fact, due to RTO mandates, between 11 and 13% of these younger workers have started looking for a new job or are looking to leave their current role entirely. So turnover is directly tied to flexibility now. That drive for work-life balance is also exactly why younger generations are increasingly pushing for less traditional models like 4-day work weeks and job sharing.
Finally, Section 5. Connecting the generational dots. Let's synthesize all this data. Let's see how all this builds together into a single picture. Step 1. The data undeniably shows that basic economic milestones, like buying a home with a median salary, have become mathematically much harder to reach than they were in 1980 or 1989. Step 2. Alongside that economic reality, clinical anxiety and mental health distress diagnoses have reached unprecedented highs for Gen Z compared to previous generations. And Step 3, as a direct consequence of the first two, the modern workplace mindset shifts. I mean, think about it. If the traditional reward of corporate loyalty, a house and financial comfort, is no longer guaranteed, of course younger workers are going to prioritize purpose, mental well-being, and flexibility today, rather than holding out for a future payoff that mathematically might never come. So, the modern youth mindset isn't some arbitrary attitude problem. It is a direct reaction to verifiable data. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. If the traditional economic milestones of the past are increasingly out of reach, how will Gen Z and millennials ultimately redefine what a successful future looks like for all of us? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I encourage you to keep questioning, keep learning, and, as always, keep looking at the data.